This is Kim Hammer with your devotion taken from 1 Samuel chapter 26, verses 1 through 12. The chapter starts off with a group being identified as the Ziphites, who went to Saul and sold David out. Now, David had never done anything to this group or to this nationality. In fact, he had a reputation of helping his neighbors when he was out wandering in the wilderness trying to escape Saul. But yet they went to David, or to Saul, and sold David out. You have to ask the question, well, why would they do that? No doubt Saul had put the word out that he would pay a reward for anybody that would help find David and help lead to his destruction. You remember a few chapters earlier that Saul had 85 priests and an entire town where they lived, along with the women, the children, and all the livestock, just totally annihilated. If he was willing to go to that extreme for those who he found had helped David, imagine what he would do as far as how much he would pay those who would be willing to help him find David. And so we find that David got sold out. One of the things you need to realize is that as a Christian, or even as somebody that does that which is right, that you're not above being sold out. Because human nature, driven by Satan's actions, will often cause those to betray others who even have a history of helping them. That's why we always need to trust in the Lord, because the Lord will never sell us out. As the story goes on, Saul assembles his army of 3,000. They go down to where David is supposed to be staying, and as a result, after a long journey, he beds down for the night along with his general, who lays right beside him, and we find that Saul has his spear and his water jug right there beside him. Now in the night, as you read on, God had caused the army and Saul to go into a deep sleep, so much so that David was able to slip in between them and go and take the spear of Saul, and also to take his water jug. Now there were two individuals that had an opportunity to go down and help David. One of them was Ahimelech the Hittite, and the other one was Abishai, and that was David's sister's son. When David put out the call and he addressed them both specifically by name, and he said, "Who will go down with me?" It was Abishai who said, "I will go with you." And that's all we know, and that's all we ever are told about Abimelech the Hittite. Nothing else is mentioned about him. But when you go on and you read the rest of the story, you find that Abishai became a leader in David's army whenever it was that he took control. So that brings us down to these two questions that we want to ask ourselves today. What do you want to do to be remembered for? We find that with regards to Ahimelech the Hittite, nothing else was ever mentioned about him. He didn't answer the call to go. But when it comes to Abishai, he answered the call to go, and as a result, God used him in a great way. Second thing is, what's prohibiting you from wanting to go? All I know is that before the question was ever asked, this individual, it indicates, already had his mind made up and he was ready to go. One of the things I also want to ask you is this: can you remember the names of the 10 spies who came back and did not give a favorable report to Moses when they were sent in the promised land? Why not? Because they didn't do anything significant that would glorify the name of the Lord. They didn't step up when they had the opportunity to do so. My prayer is today that if God gives you the opportunity to step up, and if God says, "Are you going to go with me?" you won't remain silent, but you will do as Abishai did and say, "I will go with you." And then God will reward you with a great legacy.